Welcome. It's Friday. I'm a couple days late from the live book study, but Ezra is doing so much better. Wednesday, he woke up, it was super congested, was really struggling with breathing, so I spent most of Wednesday just caring for him and keeping him in his all settled in and making sure that he was all right, giving him breathing treatments and holding him, keeping him upright, all of those things. So we took him to the urgent care, and it looks like he has pneumonia, which not sure how he gets pneumonia when it's 90 degrees here in Florida, but he did. So we're treating that and it's going well. He's napping right now. And so anyway, I figured instead of getting behind on the book study, I would just do it a couple of days late and do it today. So this week we are on chapter 4, which is habit 2, which is reading. So last week we covered chapter 1, which was like meditating, or chapter 3, sorry, which was habit 1, which was spending time alone, praying and meditating. And then now we're on habit 2, which is reading. So I titled this, Read, You're Doomed If You Don't, because that's the whole basis of this, is that like reading and pushing yourself ahead and learning and gaining that knowledge is what is going to help you expand your mind, expand whatever it is you're working on, your lifestyle, and that is the whole point of this chapter. So chapter 4 starts on page 61, and she talks about her background and graduating from college, and she said, I made this statement that I'm never going to read again. Like, she was done learning, she's never going to read again. And she's like, I was so naive to think and so immature, and you could tell by my statement that I made that I was never going to learn again, I was never going to read again. She's like, because that just stunted me. She's like, if I'm never going to learn again, then how am I ever going to grow? How am I ever going to become successful? And so she shares this story, and she talks about how when she started working on herself and working to turn her life around, because she started off in this book, if you haven't watched the previous book study videos, she started off talking about how she went through this phase in her life where her marriage was falling apart, and she was having living paycheck to paycheck and having a hard time paying her bills, and was miserable and suffering with anxiety and depression and all of these things. And so she started, while her and her husband were split, she started focusing on herself and focusing on creating better habits so she could build a better lifestyle. And so she says, I started reading books and learning the things that I didn't know. So I started learning about money. I started learning about health. I started learning about, building a business or something like that. And that was the whole start of this chapter, is her talking about the importance of reading in her life and how it changed her. On page 63, she says, being able to learn by reading is an opportunity, not an obligation. So you can choose not to do it. You can choose to just say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to read. I don't find it important. I don't see the value in it. And that's okay. But if you look at it as an opportunity, then you look at it from a different perspective and think how can this better me? How can this make me better? How am I going to grow from this? How am I going to learn? Or what can I grow? Or what can I learn from this? And you'll look for specific things to read about so you can do those things. She says 75% of self-made millionaires have reported reading at least 2 books a month. So I'm currently I've read this book already. This is my second time reading it. I have 4 other books that I'm reading. I'm in 2 other book studies. After, I think I started last year sometime, I started reading books again. And I have always been an avid reader. I've always loved reading growing up, and usually it was just for entertainment. But now I love reading books that actually help me build personal development and grow and learn different traits, all of those things. So she's talks about how incorporating reading into your daily routine, it doesn't have to be jumping right in these millionaires and saying I'm going to read 2 books a month, because that could be overwhelming. But just start with a little bit at a time and just dedicate time to yourself and say, I am going to start reading, and I'll start with 20 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day, whatever it is you can fit into your schedule, and just start building that habit so that way you can get into the routine of doing it. She says, whatever your dreams, desires, or interests are, you can find books to encourage and teach you. Warren Buffett says reading is like compound interest. The more you read, the more knowledge you gain. So set a goal to read if you don't already, and just stick to it and start compounding that knowledge. On page 68, it says, don't be average and your life won't be average. Do the things average people don't. So she's just building up that point of, if you want to grow past an income that most people don't have, if you want to have knowledge that most people don't have, if you want to have success that most people don't have, whatever it is, health, anything, she said, just start doing those things that the people who are average, who you look at as average, they aren't doing those things. And reading is one of them, because most people think it's just a waste of time, or they do it for pleasure and not for learning. And so she said, you'll stay where you are, you'll stay in that average circle if you don't start applying these principles to your life. Earl Shove is a mentor of Jim Rohn, and he said, don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. With the right skills, you can work to solve any problem thrown at you. So again, going back to learning the skills, you can learn skills by reading. You don't have to be actively in a trade to do it. You can start learning it a little bit at a time through reading. Now, if you have to practice it to actually acquire and maintain those skills, but you can read and gain the knowledge of those skills first. And then he goes on to say, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Investing in yourself allows you to work towards your dream, not working for somebody else's. So a lot of times we equivalent this, whatever that word is, equate it to working a 9 to 5. They look at CEOs of the big 4 companies or whatever it is, and they're like, I can't believe they make that much. Well, how much time have they invested into this company to get where they are? And you're, as an employee of them, you are building their dream. You are working for them to have the money that they have. So if you don't like it, if you don't like where you are, grow yourself, work past that, and start building your own dream, your own income, so you're not stuck in the place that you are. I mentioned this before in a previous book study, but this author is a Christian author, and she talks, she constantly brings biblical principles into her books. So for this chapter, it gives the reminder of Luke 12, verse 48, and the Bible should be our ultimate source of truth. And so she says that this principle of reading and learning knowledge and gaining and using the knowledge that you acquire is the same as this principle talked about in Luke. To whosoever much is given, to him shall much be required. So if you are gaining knowledge and learning new trades and new whatever it is, then you are to be required to continue on and teach other people. You can't just hold on to that knowledge and just think, okay, great, I'm making myself successful because I know all these things. Well, what are you doing with those things? Because that's going to help you tread the path of success more than just holding on to knowledge and doing nothing with it. The more money we have, the greater the responsibility we have to invest, to donate, to multiply that money. We can't just keep it in our bank account and assume that it's going to accumulate itself. We have the obligation to invest it and do something with that money. The same thing with knowledge. The more that we know, then we should teach other people, we should help other people in those arenas. If you don't like the size of your money, this is a quote she uses in here, if you don't like the size of your money, increase the size of you. Again, going back to learning that knowledge and going out and actually acting on it, not just keeping it to yourself. She says this principle doesn't only apply to financial or knowledge, it applies to relationships, it applies to ministries, it applies to jobs, any of those fields. This is a principle that you can, apply to all of it. She says successful people never stop acquiring knowledge. The coach, Michael Jordan's coach, uses this quote, the body has limitations, but the mind does not. So she has 4 questions that she puts in here for you to do a self-check on yourself. You can do this monthly, you can do this yearly, you can do it however many times you want, but she gives these 4 questions. What did you do, she says, last year to grow, or what are you currently doing to grow? So if you're looking at yourself and you're like, I don't like where I am, well, ask yourself these questions. What are you doing? Are you just complaining about it? Because that's not going to get you anywhere. What are the positive things happening in your life? What can you apply to your life to help yourself grow? And if you are listening in on this book study, this is one thing that you're doing to grow yourself, to learn, and to build knowledge. So good for you. Congratulations. How many books did you read? If you're not reading any books and acquiring knowledge or, putting forth the effort to show the knowledge that you're gaining, then start doing it. How many hours of TV do you watch, or how long are you scrolling social media? Okay, this is a big one in our culture. Like, how much time are we putting into this stuff? And then the fourth question, how would you benefit from cutting out 1 hour of screen time? So what can you do in that 1 hour of time that you are not currently getting done? So those are the 4 questions that she says to ask. Now she gives 7 reading habits for successful people. So why do these people read? So the first one, she says, they are intentional about reading. They schedule time to read. It can be 15 to 20 minutes a day, 1 book a month, a chapter a week, whatever is an achievable goal. Set that in place, set it in stone, tell yourself this is a non-negotiable. I am absolutely reading X amount this week, this day, whatever it is, and just do it. But don't be an overachiever, okay? Don't say like I'm reading 1 book a week if you've never picked up a book in like the last 6 years. Start with a reasonable goal and then just go for it. Number 2, they are selective about what they read. So choose books that will help you learn, not just entertain you. A book holds the advice, the experience, and wisdom of a person you admire, sharing what they know with you. So we have unlimited access to coaches, to business men, women, presidents, whatever it is. We have access to all of their knowledge in books, biographies, autobiographies, whatever it is. Like, we can pick those up and read them and learn the things that they did to get to where they were. It's not a hidden secret. It's not something that they're keeping to themselves, not sharing. Like, you can find anybody who you admire, whatever field that they are in, and find a book about what they wrote and the things they did to achieve success. Number 3, they read to grow. So it says, she uses this quote from Lawrence Powell, and it says, write to be understood, speak to be heard, and read to grow. So again, using that knowledge of reading, what you read, and learning it to grow, and not just holding it in to yourself. On page 73 and 74, John Maxwell shares a story about growing up, and he says that his father actually would pay his children, so John Maxwell and his siblings, to read 30 minutes a day. So instead of paying them to do chores, he said, your chores are your responsibility for living here. So that's just part of it. You have to do those things because you live in our house. So that is already a requirement. But reading is not a requirement. So if you read 30 minutes a day, he paid his children to do, to do that. And let me see if I can find it, because he talks about his siblings and how they were so much farther ahead when they graduated just by reading. And I thought it was so good. He talks about like his brother. Maxwell said that by the time his brother and his sister graduated high school, they were so far ahead of their peers simply because they were assigned to read great books by their father. By the time John Maxwell's brother graduated from college, he was a millionaire. Okay, think about that. He's probably, 23, 24, 25, graduating college, and he's a millionaire already. And how many people can say that? Like, I know I couldn't say that. I haven't even graduated college. So there's that little tip for you. Here I am doing a book study, and I didn't even graduate college. By the time John was 28, he had the 10th largest nonprofit organization in the country. By the time his sister was 27, so that's 3 years younger than I am, she was running a hospital in Dayton, Ohio, okay? And it says, point well taken. So the 3 Maxwell kids were required to read, and look at where it got them in life. It got them so much farther ahead because of the responsibility that their dad put on them. Again, you have this knowledge and you're responsible for growing that knowledge and not just keeping it to yourself. Okay, it says your future largely depends on what you learn and practice, okay? There's the key, practicing what you learn. It says God has so much for your life, so don't stay where you are, okay? Figure out what that dream is, what that goal is, where God wants you, and achieve it. Don't just say, well, that's a good dream, God, but I'm never going to get there, okay? That self-negative talk is not going to get you where you need to go. You have to think positive and actually pursue what it is that God puts on your heart, because it's there for a reason. Number 4, they read to save time and money. Reading to learn from others' mistakes allows you to avoid failures and pitfalls that could derail your success, and it will save you money in the long run. So if you're not a business owner, this is something, obviously my husband and I have owned many businesses, but they are saying, like, you can learn from other people's mistakes. So in my background, owning businesses, there's a lot that goes into it that you don't know about until you get into it. So we owned a coffee shop, And we probably could have saved ourselves a lot of headache had we learned about the industry, the food industry, the coffee industry, whatever, before we had bought the coffee shop. So we could have, again, used these principles to learn about that. If you're in real estate or mortgage or self-made business, whatever it is, learn from other people's mistakes first before you own your business and make the same mistakes yourself, because it, again, can save you a lot of time and money. We become who we surround ourselves with, and we have the opportunity to surround ourselves with the greatest public speakers, business owners, inventors, etc. through books. So this is, I mean, you can even go to like reading the Bible. That should be like your base point, right? Like, all of the knowledge that we need to have is found in the Bible. But if we don't understand it, then there's so many study Bibles out there that can help us really dig in deep and understand the Word of God. Number 5, it says they seize every moment to learn. So most people will say, oh, I only have 20 minutes until I have to leave. But the successful people look at it and say, I have 20 minutes to do something productive. So that 20 minutes I can listen to a podcast, or I can read 20 minutes from this book that I'm reading, or I can spend that 20 minutes and journal my thoughts, or whatever it is. Look at it as you have 20 minutes to do something productive. Now I only have this amount of time, and then scramble to get something done. It says the successful people utilize every single minute of the day, not just every half hour or hour. So I am not good at setting a clock. So I will look at the clock and I'll say, oh, okay, at like noon, I'm going to do this. And then I look at the clock and it's like 12:17, and I'm like, well, there went 17 minutes of my day that I don't even know what happened to. But they're saying they set like their schedule by every single minute. So not just every half hour, not just every hour, but every single minute there's something accounted for. So if you have, 10 minutes in between whatever it is you're doing, between, lunch and homeschool or whatever it is that fits into your schedule, like you have that time to block it out and do something productive with that time. Number 6, they read to be inspired. If you want to improve your circumstances, we have to improve ourselves. We can't grow beyond where we are without learning where we want to go first and how to get there second. So learning, like I know I talked about this in the previous chapters, but really digging in deep to yourself and thinking like, okay, where do I see myself like in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years, or at the end of this year, where do I want to be and how am I going to get there? And then pick up books that will inspire you to help you grow to get to where you are going to be, because you will get there. You just have to put in the work. So choose books that are going to help you and inspire you to apply concepts to get to where you want to go. And then the last habit that she says for reading is they apply what they read. So again, to practicing what you learn, like practice what you preach, whatever. That saying, I feel like is so hard, because it's like, as a parent, you get into the habit of like, oh, you can't do this because X, Y, and Z. Or when growing up, my mom would always say like, oh, because I'm the mom, I said so. But this is practicing what you preach. This is actually gaining the knowledge, knowing it, and then going out there practicing doing it, and not just sitting on your hands and saying, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but nothing's happening. I'm not getting any more success than where I was like 3 months ago when I first started these habits. You have to practice them. You have to go out and do them. And there's a quote in here from Edmund Burke, and he says, to read without reflecting is like eating without digesting, which I read that and it's really repulsive. It's disgusting to think about that. But it really puts into the perspective of like, if you're reading and gaining knowledge and not doing anything, not practicing those things you're learning, then you're just not digesting it. So we'll just leave that one alone for a little while, because again, it's kind of gross to think about. Gaining knowledge and doing nothing will get you nowhere. So don't read to finish a book. Take something away and apply the knowledge. And then on page 79, it says, reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Reading helps reduce stress. It allows you to gain more wisdom and knowledge to equip you to handle any challenge you face. So I just love that perspective, because for me, like working out is like, it's easy for me to do that. I've been doing it for a little while now, and it's just it's a habit, it's a routine. I just do it. But it says reading has the same effect for your mind as working out does for your body. And it's something that we don't do often. It's something that is a struggle, and we kind of just push it to the side. But it's so good for us to keep our mind sharp and work out, keep our body sharp, and all of that. So next week is chapter 5, listen to audios. I struggle with that one because I hate background noise, but it's a good one, and I started applying it. So we will follow up with chapter 5 next week. Hi, Sandy. I see your wave. Well, thanks for joining me. I will be back hopefully Wednesday next week, and I will see you all then.